we stick with the welterweight division. A man who is streaking as of late. He has won 10 of 11. Have wanted to get Neil Magny on this program for quite some time. Finally linked up with him. He's coming off a big win over Hector Lombard, and he is joining us right now on the phone. Neil, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, sir.
Great to have you on the show, finally. Wow. It has been a long time coming, and you are killing it, my man, coming off that big win over Hector Lombard. How many times have you watched that fight against Hector Lombard, honestly?
I've literally probably watched the highlights of it probably 100 times, not even kidding. Every time I open my social media, that video is playing over and over and over again. I just feel like it can't get old.
But wait a second. You say the highlights. Why not the full fight?
Well, we just haven't had a chance to get the full fight yet. I mean, it's not on UFC Fight Pass, so I just haven't even able to catch the highlights of it. I haven't been able to watch the full fight just yet.
When you going back to that moment, and even when you watch it, when you see how things went, because that was such a crazy fight. 10-8 first round, arguably for him, 10-8 second round for you. When you see the end of that second round and how long the referee, Steve Percival, let it go on, are you just astounded? I mean, how could that be? It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely a little bit frustrated with the referee at the time that he let the fight go on as long as he did in that second round. But I'm not sure what he was seeing or what made him allow it to go that long. But I just try to forget about it at the time and just kind of go right back to what I need to do to win the fight. It was kind of a hard position to put me in as well because Hector was in a position that he wasn't able to defend himself. And for me, being a martial artist, it wouldn't make sense for me to just keep pounding the guy out and give him like more damage than he needed to take. So it was kind of a weird balance where I was in a fight. I didn't want to give the guy more damage than he needed to, but yet I need to win the fight as well. So it did put me in a hard spot at the time. Was
that almost uncomfortable for you, you say, like as a martial artist, to be in that spot where you think and know, that the guy is out, doesn't need any more damage, yet the referee's not stopping it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one thing if the guy's fighting and getting out and improving his position, but it's something else when the guy's completely covering up and his ego's not letting him tap or something like that. I mean, he took literally 40 unanswered shots where he was just laying there hoping that the ref would call it so that he wouldn't have to be the one that quit. But for some reason, the ref just refused to do it.
Great. How close were you to being out in the first round?
I remember most of the first round. I mean, I don't think there was ever a point where I was completely out in the fight. Like I was very conscious at the time, so I can hear the ref say, "Neil, fight back. Neil, improve your position." I can hear him say, "Watch the back head" and things like that. So, though I was hurt, I don't think I was ever unconscious or out of it at any point.
Did you hear that Lombard is now going back to 185? Do you take some pride in the fact that you kicked him out of the welterweight division and moved him back up to 185?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to be the first guy that beat Hector, or to finish Hector Lombard in his entire career and be the only guy to beat him at welterweight, it does feel pretty good to be the guy that literally beat him out of the division. I mean, that's something that I can brag about for years and years to come. So that part definitely felt good.
A nice feather in your cap, and you went to his adopted home country to win, to boot. So that's a great performance out of you. And the UFC has rewarded you, right? Because you just signed a new contract with them, correct?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't leave Australia before I had a new contract in the UFC, offered me another 4-fight deal and gave me quite a bit of a raise as well. So I've been truly grateful for that, and I just really appreciate the UFC recognizing my hard work and rewarding me for it. Now,
this is interesting because you had one fight left on your old contract, correct?
Yes.
And as you know, free agency, a hot topic in our sport these days, but you chose not to play out your contract and re-sign before the contract is up. Why did you decide to do that and not roll the dice like some others have?
I just know that UFC is where I want to be right now. I mean, I set out to accomplish a lot of things UFC, and I feel like I haven't accomplished those things yet. So at the time, it just wasn't. I didn't feel it necessary to play the open market or free agency at all and check out the waters elsewhere. I just feel like I have a lot of things to achieve in the UFC, and that's where I need to be right now in order to do so.
Now, like I said, you've won 10 of 11. You're streaking. You've had some big wins, in particular as of late, Lombard, Gastelum, Eric Silva. And on this show, I don't know if you know this, but at times I've been a little critical of you. I have no problem saying this because I feel like you've been winning in such impressive fashion against big names, and then they put the mic in front of you, and you don't ask for anyone, you don't call anyone out. You're just too nice. But it seems like things are changing a little bit because I noticed on social media you were calling out Nate Diaz. You actually were calling someone out. You did this recently, right? That wasn't an imposter. That was you, correct?
Yeah, that was definitely me. I mean, the opportunity came up where I saw Conor McGregor pull out of the fight, and Nate Diaz didn't have an opponent at the time. And I just thought it would be a great thing for me. I mean, currently in the welterweight division, everyone who's ranked above me is already preoccupied with fights, things like that. So in my mind, I thought, why not take the fight against Nate Diaz? I mean, it'll be a huge opportunity for me to keep relevant, give it an impressive performance for the fans, and just stay relevant in the sport.
You always say, you'll take whoever the UFC gives you. Why call them out now? Why did you change your tune? Have you recognized that calling people out is actually beneficial to your career?
It maybe or may not be, but honestly, at the time, I just saw an opportunity and I went for it. The opportunity to fight on UFC 200 would have been huge. Just fight a guy like Nate Diaz coming off an impressive win over Conor McGregor would have been huge for my career. So maybe at the time, I just saw the opportunity. It wasn't necessarily anything personal against Nate Diaz in particular, but the opportunity that fighting him would have brought, especially at UFC 200.
So as we sit here and speak on this Monday afternoon, Nate doesn't have a fight. Conor's not on the card. Any chance? I mean, have you asked the UFC? I know, Dana loves you. He talks about you all the time. Do you feel like you might actually get this fight?
I'm not sure if I'm going to get it or not, but I definitely did put it out there. Let the UFC know that I'm definitely interested in it, and I'm back in the gym training. So if that's the fight they want to put together, I'll gladly accept it, and I was ready to go. I'm not sure what the plans are with Nate Diaz. I'm not sure what Nate Diaz plans to do as far as him sitting out and wait for Conor McGregor to come back and then take a fight against him. So it's all in the air right now. I mean, one thing I don't like is sitting on the bench not having a fight. So I just thought it would be better for me to be proactive and call someone out and get back on the card.
Yeah, because in 2014, you tied the record for 5 fights in 1 calendar year. Clearly, you are an active guy. You like to get out there. Is that the dream fight for you right now? I mean, styles-wise, that is a beautiful fight. I mean, just given your height and reach and his, and just the way you fight and the way he fights, I have a hard time envisioning that being a bad fight. Is that the dream fight for you right now? A fight against Nate at 170?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like that's the fight that would be great for my career right now. I feel like that's a fight that would be great for the fans as well. I mean, I don't think he or I would hold back in that fight. It would just be an all-out war where the fans get a fight they can really appreciate. And it might be along with the fight like Stephen Bonner and Forrest Griffin. I mean, I'm just sure that both will leave it all in that octagon and then just go to war. So I don't see anything bad coming about with that fight.
At this point, though, if you don't get that, if he goes back to 155 and does his thing there, how far away? I can't imagine that you're more than 1 fight away from being in that title talk, if not already, right? I mean, beating Lombard, you see who's ahead of you, and I know the Maia fight still kind of sticks out, but you have to be in that discussion, don't you think?
Yeah, I definitely feel I'm right there. I mean, one of the biggest things for me, I think I've seen me over top too, get that title shot, is just getting to the point that the fans want to see it more than anything else. I mean, I'm pretty sure if I put on another performance, another perfect performance, or the fans like, oh man, Neil Magny's amazing. I wish you guys got a fight for a title. That's what's going to give me that title shot. And I'm definitely not going to get it by sitting on the couch waiting the next 3-4 months and seeing how things play out. I mean, Carlos Khan is the perfect example of that. I mean, he was out for a year. He came back, fought the number 13 ranked guy, beat him pretty good, and got a title shot right out there. And so at this point, I realize that the numbers don't mean everything, and it's all about who the fans want to see fight. So
what do you make of what Tyron Woodley has done, sort of waiting for that fight? It might work out for him, it might not. As someone in the division who likes to be active, what do you make of that situation?
I feel like he's definitely rolling the dice. I mean, I know at the time it was something that Dana White promised him, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure that was just Dana White speaking out of emotion at the time, depending on what he was feeling. I mean, on paper or in reality, it doesn't make much sense that he would get a title shot after staying out for a year because the opponent didn't make weight. I mean, excuse me. In the fight business, I mean, the fight's not official until it actually happens. You can't just take into account like, oh, this guy didn't make weight, that means I can make the shot because that counts as a win. I mean, anything that happens in the fight business, and to take that as a win and give a guy a title shot off it, I don't necessarily agree with it, but if he gets it, good for him. Hopefully it works out for him, but in my opinion, I don't think that's how it should work out.
I remember seeing, I think I've talked about this on this show. I remember seeing you walking down the street in Rio after UFC 163, the Sunday after that fight. You had just lost to Sergio Moraes in the first round, and it was clear you were bummed. I don't know if you remember that. You were just kind of walking with your head down, and then you came back, and I just, I thought, he's obviously bummed that you fly all the way to Rio, and it sucks to lose. You come back and you lose to Seth Baczynski, and now here you are staring at a 2-fight losing streak. Did you think, at that time, 3 or so years ago, guys were getting cut for 2-fight losing streaks. Did you think after that Baczynski fight that you were done in the UFC? Were you worried about that?
Yeah, I was 1% worried about it, man. I even went as far as taking the Denver police exam because I thought my career as a UFC fighter was over after that loss. I mean,
Wow.
it definitely took some time praying on it and seeing what was next for me and things like that. But after that second loss, I honestly thought that my time to see had come to an end. I mean, to lose first round and lose to a guy who's, I think at the time, on a 2-fight losing streak, it just didn't sit well with in my eyes with the UFC. So I thought for sure, like, all right, that was it. You came out, you tried. Didn't make the cut. Good luck next time. So I thought it was over at that point.
So, and were you ready to stop fighting?
I was at the time. I mean, I just put so much into my career that I was ready to get things back in order. I mean, I left my home in Chicago. I walked away from the police academy in Chicago. I left the military. I left all these things behind in order to pursue my career in MMA. And when it wasn't working out for me, I just thought that I just hit that wall, and that was as far as I can go. So I was in a position where I need to get my life in order first and then get back to fighting later. So those two losses in a row kind of put me in a position where it's like, all right, kind of reprioritize what's important in your life and where is it you're trying to go, and then worry about fighting later.
Do you remember what it was like when you found out that you weren't getting cut and that you were going to get a third crack at this?
Oh, it was just pure excitement. I was like, all right, here we go. Here's that third opportunity to make the best of it. I mean, I remember walking into the gym, smiling ear to ear, telling my coach, like, hey, I got to fight. I'm going back in, coach. And they were all just excited as I was to be able to go in there and get one more shot.
And then, of course, you proceed to win 7 in a row. Like I said, you had that one fight against Magny, then you've now won 3 in a row. What the heck changed? Like, where did the guy who lost 2 in a row go, and how did you turn into this killer?
I think the biggest part was just relying more on my faith and relying that no matter what happens, where I go, God's going to provide for me, and just letting go of the things that I couldn't control. I mean, whether or not I get cut in UFC, no big deal. My life still goes on. Whether or not I put on a great performance, whatever, my life still goes on. So just kind of realizing that it's not the end of the day when I lose a fight or whatever, and just letting go of the things I couldn't control kind of helped me focus on more things I could control, which is my training and my mindset when I go out there and try to fight.
So back in the day, you used to worry a lot about that? Like, you used to make mountains out of molehills? Like, you used to focus so much on the result and your career in the UFC, and then you just decided to let it go?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even especially after losing that fight, I was like, oh man, here I am with bills stacking up and all these other things and I would worry about, like, oh man, how am I going to make it through? How am I going to make it to my next fight and all these other things? And once I quit worrying about the what ifs and focus on it now, it made a huge difference. How
often do you think about that Maia fight?
I think about it all the time. I mean, honestly, I don't fault Maia for it. It was almost like I know it sounds cliche when guys say that you learn more from a loss than a win, but in that fight, I feel like that's exactly what it was. I mean, I was at a point where, if you hear my interviews, I was like, oh man, I feel good right now. I won 7 fights in a row. There's no way this man who's 10 years old is going to beat me, all this other stuff, and just kind of lost track of where I was going and what got me on that 7-fight win streak to begin with. So I feel like that loss against Dave Maia was definitely humbling and exactly what I needed at the time to give me the motivation and that drive to carry on after him.
So you I mean, it's funny because I just spoke to Gunnar Nelson, who had the same kind of experience with Maia. Did you kind of think that, like, the fact that he's fighting in a couple of weeks against Matt Brown, and he's on the cusp of a title shot as well, like, did you think that this guy was kind of at the end of the road of his career, and he was a little over the hill? It's fair to say you were kind of underestimating him going into that fight?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the things that made me underestimate him for sure was the 10-year age difference. I mean, I was 10 years younger than he was. He was in a lot of wars in the UFC and things like that. So I for sure thought that my youth was gonna play a huge factor in the fight. But when I went out there, that clearly wasn't the issue at all. I mean, he came 100% prepared and knew exactly what he had to do, and did just that.
You fought Brazilians like Maia in Brazil. You went to Mexico to fight Kelvin Gastelum, Lombard in Australia, and from what you're born in Brooklyn, right? Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York.
When did you leave Brooklyn?
I left Brooklyn when right before I started high school. So I went to high school in Chicago and went to college in Southern Illinois.
Which part of Brooklyn?
So I grew up around. I did a lot of moving around when I lived in Brooklyn. My mom was a single mom, so I literally changed schools every single year. So I went from Flatbush to Canarsie to Bushwick, just bouncing all over the place. Then my mom was able to find a place for us to stay.
So, I mean, how awesome! I mean, that card in November in New York. Wouldn't that be something? Is that the dream, to come back to New York and fight at MSG?
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, with all my family still being in New York City, that'd be an amazing fight for me. I mean, just fighting this Madison Gun Loan, just going out there and knowing that guys like Mike Tyson have fought there and all these other things. I mean, to be able to go to Madison Square Garden and fight there, that'd be great. That'd be like a dream come true for me.
I feel like you've done them so many solids, the UFC. They owe you this one. Brooklyn boy to fight. Have you told Dana White this? You stepped up for them on short notice. They owe you this one, right?
I haven't spoken to Dana White about it just yet. I'm planning on being in UFC 200 out in Vegas that week, and that was a conversation I was waiting to have face-to-face. Like, hey, I've been there for you guys time and time again, just setting up short notice across the world, not just the country, but across the world, fighting main events, co-main events, whatever it may be. This is one thing I would truly ask for, just to get the opportunity to fight on that inaugural time in Madison Square Garden. It's the first time ever. It's going to be a history-making event. I just want to take part in it. So that's just one of the questions I'll wait to ask face-to-face with them.
That's a smart move, and I think you deserve it. By the way, part of that maturation that you talked about after the Maia fight, I love that you went on Twitter and actually asked him if you can attend one of his seminars in Las Vegas, I believe it was, right? Would the old Neil Magny not have done that?
Probably not. My ego probably would have kept me from doing so. But after that loss, I look at it one of two ways. I can look at it as like, oh, whatever. I lost to one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the world and just leave it at that. Or I can pick that guy's brain and it's like, hey, how did you beat me the way you did, and try to apply it to my fights later on. And that's exactly what I did. I mean, he took some time out of his day to like give me a couple of pointers of things that I was missing in my fights, things like that. And I feel like it made a difference. So I'm sure grateful for the opportunity that he gave me as far as like letting me come to his seminar and even taking the time out of his day to teach me a few things.
Did you get the impression that he was really telling you what was going on? Or, you know, because there's a chance you might meet again at some point. So did you feel like he was holding back, or were you guys really, you know, talking and sharing secrets and all that?
I feel like it was truly genuine. I mean, just from talking to him on the ride back to the hotel and everything, I mean, it just seemed like it was coming from a good place, and he had no reason to hold back that information. I mean, David Maia is a martial artist first and a fighter second. So for him, passing on the knowledge to a younger martial artist is what he's about. I mean, that's what a black belt does. So I feel like that's exactly what he was doing at the time. That is
amazing. I remember that vividly. You went on Twitter and you asked him, and I couldn't believe it. And that was how long after the fight was that? That was not that long after, right? Just a few weeks.
Yeah, I honestly believe it was that long after. I mean, I think it had to have been. No, it was a few months after, because I fought Gastelum and Eric Silva both, and that was one thing he pointed out to me was the back control position, where I was so eager to get some punches going that didn't necessarily control the position first, and just pointed out how I could control that position better, and it made a difference.
Amazing. I love that. Okay, so to wrap, you don't want to sit on the sidelines. You want to get back in there. You got the contract. You're living the life. Perfect world. You want to fight on one of those cards in July, or even before that? I mean, what's the perfect scenario now?
Perfect scenario for me is I'll get the fight in Chicago in July, turn around and fight in New York City later this year. I mean, that'll be the best way I see it going. If it happens, great. But the tough part now is once you climb the ranks, the selection as far as who you're able to fight becomes smaller and smaller. So I'm open to going as far back as the top 15 to get an opponent, just so I can fight on either or both, for that matter, in Chicago, and turn around and fight again in New York City.
Wow. That is amazing. What a breath of fresh air to hear that. Someone who's climbing the ranks, who's knocking on that door, and is willing to take an opponent who's, you know, lower ranked. That's amazing stuff. That July card is on Fox. That would be a great platform for you as well. Appreciate the time, Neil. Great to have you on the show for the first time, and looking forward to watching you climb that ladder. It's been a lot of fun thus far.
Awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on. All
right, there he is, Neil Magny, Brooklyn represent. Doing great things for that team out of Colorado, the Elevation Fight Team. He is on a roll. 3 big wins for Neil Magny. Appreciate his time very much.